Hi, and welcome to another episode of Emerald Isle Vacation Home Specialist. I am your host, Dennis Richkovsky. Some of you recognize me as the co-owner of Flip Flops Donuts, and some of you know me as your broker of real estate, specializing in waterfront and water view properties along the Crystal Coast, especially on Bogue Banks and in Emerald Isle, North Carolina. As I record this, many communities in many states along the eastern seaboard are cleaning up after Tropical Storm Isaias made landfall a week ago Monday. One barrier island, Bogue Banks, and the communities on this island, Atlantic Beach, Indian Beach, Salter Path, and Emerald Isle, are not among those. And that is the main point of today's video. There are numerous barrier island communities to call home, from Montauk on the eastern tip of Long Island to South Padre Island, just north of Brownsville, Texas. However, there are only a handful of communities on a couple of barrier islands where it is safe to build a residence without fear of constant evacuation for tropical storms. In this episode, I describe the geographic features of those couple of safe barrier islands and their communities. Indeed, only one barrier island, Bogue Banks in North Carolina, has all of the geographic features I will describe, making it and its communities, such as my town of Emerald Isle, the safest and best place to purchase coastal property. Numerous scientific studies of post-storm impacts on barrier islands and their communities point to several salient features, some natural, some man-made, that define how safe it is to live on a barrier island vis-a-vis property damage mitigations. First, wide beaches protect property. Wide beaches are better suited than narrow beaches for absorbing storm wave energy, and the greater distance between the zone of wave action and a building, the better. Here I'm thinking of central and western Emerald Isle. Second, dunes also protect property. Dunes absorb and dissipate storm wave energy, thus providing a protective barrier for buildings located behind dunes. Where dunes rather than buildings are available for absorbing the impact of storm wave energy, post-storm, the beaches are wider. In essence, the dune can act as a bank of sand for a stormy day, and this is why dune width is significant. And if the dune is significantly high, it can afford buildings protection from the wind, such as central and western Emerald Isle, as well as protection from the water. Do you need any other reason for not removing a dune wherever it is located on an island? Third, vegetation protects property. Not only should every grain of sand be conserved, but every effort should be taken to retain as much forest as possible, such as Pine Knoll Shores and western Emerald Isle on Bogue Banks. And where appropriate, where trees have been removed, every effort should be made to encourage reforestation. This usually starts with rebuilding dunes and stabilizing these dunes with vegetation. Fourth, setbacks protect property. When selecting a beachfront property, seek a property set well back from the ocean, and choose a property significantly deep so as erosion threatens, the property can be moved. And here I am thinking about the 7000s blocks in the western third of Emerald Isle. In the end, setbacks are the least expensive property mitigation strategy available to homeowners. Fifth, elevation protects property. Elevation may be the most important property mitigation strategy. Constructing on pilings or natural land elevation mitigate damage from storm wave heights. as does siting buildings outside the FEMA 100-year flood elevation plain. Here again, I'm thinking about selected portions of central and western Emerald Isle and Bogue Banks. Sixth, adherence to enlightened zoning, land use planning, and building codes also protect property. At the very least, in communities such as Emerald Isle, where building codes are enforced, failed structures are less likely to act as agents of destruction in the event of a severe weather event. Seventh, curving roads protect property. Unfortunately, roads that are oriented perpendicular to the shoreline are ubiquitous in Barrier Island communities. This is unfortunate as the roads effectively act as conduits for storm surge overwash. Better to have curving roads such as Land's End in Emerald Isle, or roads that are obliquely angled from the shoreline. Eighth, building over or around dunes protects property. Cutting notches in dunes for better views, easier construction, or beach access is common practice in many Barrier Island subdivisions. However, these notches act as overwash conduits. Not a good idea. Again, better to build over or around dunes. Here I'm thinking Pine Knoll Shores and Emerald Isle as examples. Ninth, hard engineered stabilization do not protect property. Overwhelming evidence, historical and experimental, have conclusively demonstrated that seawalls do not protect buildings and seawalls do not protect beaches. Here I'm thinking Monmouth Beach in New Jersey. Terminal groins, such as those you find in Cape May, New Jersey, basically rob Peter to pay Paul. They trap sediment on one side and intensify erosion on the other. Thankfully, only a few Barrier Island communities in North Carolina, here I'm thinking North Topsail, Holden Beach, Ocean Isle, and Bald Head Island, have seriously evaluated hard stabilization options for property protection. These are also the same islands that are often and frequently evacuated at the hint of a storm coming up from the tropics. And only one of these Barrier Islands, Bald Head Island, has constructed a terminal groin in an effort to inhibit shoreline retreat. So there you have it, the 9 ways to evaluate an island geographically to look at property mitigation issues. And if you desire to live where you vacation, you become a member of a very exclusive fraternity. And there is an equally exclusive fraternity of brokers who live on Bogue Banks and who are capable of advising you on acquiring or selling Barrier Island property. I am a member of both exclusive fraternities. And as your broker, I can identify the natural features of Barrier Islands, their beaches, frontal and interior dune fields, maritime forests and marshes, dunes, and know how these natural features are impacted by wind, waves, currents, and storm surges. I can also recognize and make you aware and hopefully direct you away from hazards such as inlets, potential overwash areas, flooding, and low elevation sites. And I also can speak to specific site mitigation strategies that incorporate repairing and restoring a property to its natural settings, where feasible, such as rebuilding dunes and/or planting vegetation. And I also can summarize a community's collective attitude toward living with the rules of the sea. I do live where you vacation, and when you choose to do the same, I hope you will engage my services. You may reach me by texting or calling me at 919-308-2292. And I urge you to go to Amazon.com and purchase a copy of my latest book, Live Where You Vacation. You'll be glad that you did. Return next week to the same bat channel at the same bat time of 9 a.m. on Thursday for another episode of Emerald Isle Vacation Home Specialist.